And we're live. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to All Things Nonlinear Dynamical, talks about the brain and human connection. This show tackles the big questions: overcoming challenges, mental well-being, the power of music and literature, and even cutting-edge brain training tech. This morning, I am tickled pink to have another opportunity at Living Words in a chat with Valdeane W. PhD. He's the co-founder of the Zengar Institute Incorporated and the co-developer of Neurop. Today, Val will talk to us about Eastern philosophy and its relation to personal transformation, its laws of form, and the four distinctions of Nagarjuna as the basis for that solution-oriented, rapid transformation and paradoxical interventions. So I will be upfront and beg forgiveness in asking Val to talk to me like I'm a 2-year-old so that I can better understand this wonderful and complex stuff. Good morning and welcome to you, Val.
Oh, good morning. Good morning.
Yeah. How are you?
I'm good. It's beginning to be another beautiful day here in Victoria, British Columbia. This is the sort of best time of the year to be here, starting now through late September-ish, depending on things, because it's the long days, the long sun in the afternoon into the evening, and it's very pleasant temperatures and bright, sunny, very clear skies, and it's gorgeous. If you can't ever get up to Victoria during this time, this is the time to come really and experience it. And I love it, looking outside the windows and, because I'm right on the edge of the Uplands Golf Course.
Oh,
so
very nice.
Right outside the other side of the house is a row of trees that kind of blocks off rather errant golf balls that occur occasionally. So, but it's a lot of fun. I really enjoy it.
That's wonderful. Yeah, we're getting at the tail end of a really nasty 3-week heat wave.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
temperatures over 100 degrees or 40s Celsius. I'm not very good at math, so I can't convert it.
That's about right. That's about right. Yeah, I'm actually going to Madrid for the month of August, and it's kind of funny to be there in August because arguably some would say that's exactly the wrong time to be there, because that's what it'll be like. It'll be 40 or even higher, it could be, and you're in the high central plain there, or Mesa, really. So, but it's a dry heat, and so
what was the movie where the guy said, "Yeah, but it's a dry
heat"? Oh, that's Aliens. Yeah, it's Aliens. Yeah. Yeah.
Bill Pullman, and may he rest in peace. Yeah.
Yes. It's such a good movie. But like many movies, for technical editing and for commercial release, they removed a couple of critical scenes.
Mm-hmm.
And the movie then no longer really makes as much sense. What they removed is the scene is that Ripley had a daughter that when Ripley last saw the daughter was the age of Newt.
Okay.
The girl, and so, you kind of wonder, like, wait a minute, what's the story with, how come she goes after Newt like that and takes on, the mother alien and all of that? Well, that's why. Because the daughter had just died at age in her 60s, I think it was, because Ripley was gone 57 years or whatever.
Yeah.
And so she gets back to find out that her daughter is dead. Everything else has happened. Going back there, and then here's miraculously Newt, who's survived.
Yeah.
And looks a lot like her. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Or like in Terminator 2. Yeah, Terminator 2, where there was a scene that was deleted that it's the scene when they're in the garage and Sarah Connor's, like, I don't know what to do with this because this is a killing machine, and how come he's helping us and he's, this, that, and the other. And so John Connor turns to him and goes, "How come you're such a dork? I mean, how come you're supposed to be this learning machine, but you just don't learn?" And the Terminator says, "Well, my CPU is set to read only." And, it's like, if you change that, then I can learn from the environment. And so they open up his head where the CPU is, which is the point of the movie, getting the CPU or having a meltdown. Yeah. And Sarah is there feeling like she needs to destroy the Terminator, right? But then they switch the switch to read write, so he can learn and change his programming, right? But other than that, you wonder, how come suddenly he starts learning?
Yeah. It made no sense to me. It's like,
Well, it's exactly right. It makes no sense.
Yeah,
but they had to cut, they thought they had to cut that scene out. That's where actually director's cuts of movies can be fun, because, they leave in all the bits that they don't care about being time conscious anymore.
Yeah. That's good stuff.
Yeah. So, anyway, it's an interesting place to start.
Well, yeah, there's a bit of a paradox for me, so
that's right. Well, but the funny thing is, it's so interesting that we call it paradox. It's kind of related to some of what we were talking about last time, that we've got this phrase non-linear.
Yeah.
Because the fundamental assumption is linearity. And so, from the phenomenological point of view, you can talk about the Weltanschauung, the world view, world, Schauung, perspective, view, approach, whatever. And our worldviews are like the ocean that the fish swim in. We don't experience it as separate or separable, unless we really get serious about transformation, because it's just the way things are. It's how it's experienced, right? So the premise that the world is linear is what we're taught, particularly in the West. And that makes it challenging at times, because you get into these places where you say, well, something can't both be true and false. It's either true and completely true, or it's false and completely false. And that's just that's being borderline. You're either with me or you're against me.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's the fundamental thing. And it's difficult to hear. It's been difficult for clinicians, for instance, transformational agents, a lot of different ways to talk about folks who serve that function in their lives or as their lives, because it's, well, okay, is this guy really right, or is he just wrong and trying to trick me or something?
Right.
And the truth is, and this goes to Nagarjuna, that from the Eastern perspective, truth is the interpenetration of all perspectives. It's not a choice of one. And that's the real essence of the story of the four gentlemen and the elephant. And it is four, one for each of the distinctions of Nagarjuna. And so it's like, each sees a part, but believes it's the entirety. And it's very, very clear that the entirety is vastly more than the sum of the parts. So you can't just slice things down into little bits and somehow that's what's real. The Buddhist perspective on that is captured in the word skandha, which means like a heap or pile, like a a pile of sand, like a sand dune. We go to the beach and the ocean, and it's dunes. That just happens to be that landscape, and we see the sand dune. Well, it's just a heap of sand. It's always changing. But we say, yeah, there it is. See, there's the sand dune. Well, no, it's changing moment to moment. You just don't notice that because the change is relatively small scale instead of large scale. And same thing when you look at the mountains. If you had the right time frame for your perception, if you could alter your time frame, your joint time frequency perspective of Weltanschauung.
I'm putting a dash in there.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. The dash is the most important part. You would see the mountains. Yeah, yeah, exactly. You'd even see the mountains dance.
Yeah.
Right, but we don't see it that way, and so we're stuck in these worldviews. And what really is transformation? Well, it's letting go of those strictures to experience exactly what's happening in totality. But that also means in precision and detail at the same time.
Right.
So it's that integrated duality. Well, duality is wrong. It's never just one or the other. It's multality, if you will, or multipleality. There's so many things. That's the story of Indra's net, where every perspective is like a jewel in this huge matrix of possibilities, and you see the entirety in each of the parts.
Mm-hmm.
So we think of talking that way as being paradoxical because we have this false separation, right? So you put those two things together that seem like they're contradictory, and actually that's the moment of seeing the whole or experiencing the whole. I'm thinking of this family that I worked with. I used to do a lot of live demos of clinical work where I'd have, if I was going and training a mental health facility in solution-oriented rapid transformation. And I used to always say, well, bring me a client, and client could be a family, it could be an individual, it could be, a group, could be whatever. And I said, and I don't want to know anything about them except names, right? Like, this is George and that's June or whatever. And, approximate ages. So I don't get surprised. Right. But other than that, and they'd always be saying, well, wait a minute, but we've seen these for a long time. We have history. I said, no, I don't care about that. It's either in the room now or it doesn't exist. It's just made up. Right. So this family came in, and the presenting issue in the family was that the adolescent daughter, had discovered sex. And basically, the father, but both parents wanted her to undiscover sex. Good luck
You
with
open
that
a can,
one.
there you go.
Yeah. That's right, yeah. And so we were there talking, and so the father was saying, well, she had a sexual encounter that really upset us, and we really want her to, not have sex, but we don't want her to do that because that's what we want. We want her to do that because that's what she wants.
Oh, okay.
Right. So this daughter,
good luck with that.
Yeah, really. The daughter looked at him and said, well, look at that. That's ridiculous. I'm like, damned if I do and damned if I don't. And of course that started off their disturby derby, right? They're starting to go to it, right?
I love that, disturby derby.
Yeah, that came to me from a couple that I worked with at one point, and that was one of the best live living words moments in my life. It was funny with them. I'd tell that story in a bit, but I waited for that right moment in the arguing as they were going on, and I said, well, yeah, it's like you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. But the really interesting thing about that is if you really are damned if you do and damned if you don't, you can do whatever the hell you want because you can do any damn thing you want to.
Yeah.
Right.
You got to be
Well,
damned anyway.
the daughter burst out laughing. Right. The mother
Right.
did too, and the father was like, "Well, good. That's right, isn't it?"
Yeah.
But it's like you're thinking it's got to be one or the other. It's got to be this. The frame can't change. Our daughter has to not want to discover sex, even though it's already happened. How are you going to do that? How are you going to do that paradox? How are you going to do that paradoxical bond? Because that is the bond, right? But you
Right.
tell the whole story and you put it together in the same moment. You don't really put the pieces together. You're revealing what's the totality. And that's the transformational moment. It's getting all of the story, not just this part that gets you hooked in that small perspective.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So,
I have a sidebar real quick, and then and I'm not sure if I'm going to make the point effectively. It's a little early for me, but
yeah, it's early for both of us. Okay.
Well, we're nonlinear, we're dynamical, and
it's earlier than you think, right?
But you're talking about this juxtaposition of it between right or wrong, whatever. I have the experience as a father of working with my daughter who's quite literal. In my experience, it's been a journey to remember that she is very, very, very black and white.
Yes.
And so, I have to work to rephrase things and try to join her in her reality, know. And so, it's just really fascinating to me because it's not just black and white, and then okay, well, wait a minute, this is the way her brain works, and you need to be a little more creative in the way you're explaining
That's
things.
Right. That's right. But see, here's the interesting thing, where at least what's popping in my head right now, so it makes it interesting to me that it shows up. Her view is life is black and white. Things are very distinct, very literal, right? Your view is, well, no, there's gray.
Yeah.
Well, that's already another bifurcation.
Yes.
Right?
It just dawned on me as you started to say that.
There you go.
Things cook eventually. I get it.
No, but that's how it works. That's exactly how it works. Because what's the stuck point? What's the place that would keep you guys dug in? Is you trying to prove to her that there is gray.
Yeah.
Right? And she's going to try to prove to you that it really isn't gray. It really is one way or the other. It really is black or white, And instead of trying to disprove that hypothesis that's there, it's best to just express it as a totality. That's what's really the transformational part.
Yeah.
Right? Because
I just had a transformation.
Yeah. Actually, yeah. That's kind of how I think about it. That's the liveliness of the return to the present, because those hardened perspectives were things you learned growing up. And, you could think of them as like very, very, very light, traumatizing events because they concretize a particular view of something. This is what it always means, and who knows, who knows where that was learned originally, for you, for me, for, whomever. But the point is, when you're little, really little, the parents are giants. Yeah. And every time they talk, unless they talk a very certain way, it's like thunder and it shakes your body. And especially if they're angry, right? And the bottom line is there's sort of a one of two responses that can occur. One is that they can pick you up and they can snuggle you close, and they can smile at you, and then the world is wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
Or they could even just drop you or throw you or push you and kill you. And it is that terror. It's that balance. It's that, that's life. That's the balance of life in each moment, really. And it's where Harold Searles came up with this premise. He's a psychoanalyst, very interesting psychoanalyst. And he wrote this article called The Patient as Therapist to His Analyst. And his opening was, why is it possible that any of us as humans can be psychotherapists? How is that a human possibility? He said, because every one of us is born a psychotherapist. Our job as the littlest being in the room is to take care of everybody else so they take care of us. Because every now and again, if I do the right thing, that smile is on the parent's face.
Yeah.
Your smile. And everything is wonderful in the world. So if they ain't smiling, I ain't doing the right thing.
Hey, can I give you a sidebar along that line? I've been navigating the complex cryptic reality of trying to get my daughter on straight medical insurance issues.
Right.
And it's just been, months of feeling like people aren't listening to me. Going through automated, press one, we changed our menu. Well, you've always changed your menu.
That's right.
And making the long story short, I finally got to two magical, wonderful helpers. Not giving me the hand, not gaslighting me and telling, well, I can't talk to you because you're angry. Well, I'm angry because you didn't read my email. You didn't open the form. Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Lizzie and Jasmine.
Okay.
And they opened the world for me. Now, we're not there yet. I have to apply, but I know the right forms now to fill out. So, the cryptic, to me, it's like, it's unreality because, you just can't believe this is happening.
Right.
And they opened it. And I was just so thrilled. And that, it was like, what you're talking about, them talking to me in my smile.
Yeah. Yeah,
and
exactly.
And on both of them, I said, I praised them with great praise because it was just so wonderful to have that help. And I told them, pat yourself on the back and go treat yourself to an ice cream.
That's right.
And they were thrilled with that.
Of course they were, because it's a human moment.
It was a back and forth of, bless you, thank you, woo.
It's, you're on the yellow brick road now. Right? It's
exactly.
Like you're not at Oz, but you know what to do.
Exactly. That's perfect.
Yeah.
And there's going to be, the flying monkeys and the Wicked Witch along the way. And, it's not going to be this. It's going to be this.
That's right. And then you're going to have the scarecrow going, well, both ways are nice. Right? It's like, wait a minute, how come you're talking,
Yeah.
And you don't have a brain either? Okay, maybe that's why you're talking. Thank you. You're the only one who's making sense around here.
Exactly. Well, thank you for letting me share that. I'm still tickled pink about that,
But that's, that's what it is. There's a whole other thread that was, an important one in my history and in my in the existential phenomenological program that it was at. It was kind of a side thread, but it was the premise of healing through meeting. And the idea was that it's not some tricky little thing that you do that makes the difference for the client, or it's not some wonderful interpretation that you have because you can see the real unconscious conflict or whatever. The healing occurs through authentic meeting of two people or more. That's it. It's healing through meeting. And so
Beautiful.
the question is how to get the crap out of the way so that you can actually meet in the moment. And in a certain sense, the role of the transformational agent, which is actually both, not just one. And then if you're not changing in the work you're doing with people, you're not a transformational agent because you're leaving yourself at the station, But it's that meeting in the moment of life, of now. That's what makes it a living encounter. It's not just, oh, I see you at step 57 of this path to enlightenment and well-being. So let's just look that up. Oh yeah, here you go. Here's your, And next, right?
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Okay, so I think that's like the whole thing.
Oh, well, yeah. It's a wrap, baby.
It's a wrap. That's right.
Well, I had questions.
Sure.
Like solution-oriented rapid transformation, sort of.
Right. Yep.
How did that develop for you? How did that come about? And I'm going, here we go again, but I'm off asking the question that opens the door to the whole reality.
Yeah. A number of things, I think, kind of went into that, but really the more formalized part of it, if you will, got expressed in the 5-phase model of transformation. And that then ultimately became the 5-phase model of neurofeedback as technology came online. And then as the technology became increasingly sophisticated, complex, and capable, that the computing environment became more rich, then I could start to reintegrate these 5 linear steps that had to be developed originally in neurofeedback, because that was it. But the basis of that was understanding these 5 sort of moments, if you will. They're not stages or steps necessarily. That makes it linear. Yeah. But I would arrange them as a kind of a circle with the starting point in the middle. So you went out and then you went around the edges and then you came back again. And so it was meet, join, develop, transform, solve, resolve. Mm-hmm. So the first thing is you have to meet the client. Now that sounds really silly because, usually they kind of come and meet you at your office if it's a traditional psychotherapy thing. But what's it mean to meet the client? Well, you have to figure out if you have actually a client in front of you, right? And this was picked up very strongly in Bill O'Hanlon and the solution-focused brief therapy people.
Yes.
So do you really have a client? And what is a client? What qualifies you as a client? Well, it's 2 things. It's number one, you have to have a thing you want to be different. You have to have a problem. You have to have I don't want this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And that is very important to understand, that it's what that client, that possible client, don't wants that counts, not what everybody else don't wants involving that, right?
Yeah.
And the second part is you have to want change, something. You don't have to want to change what they think the problem is or even what you think the problem is. You just have to want to change. And so, for instance, what happens with the back then typical angry adolescent? Well, the adolescent wants the parents to change and let him come in at 3 a.m. if he wants to, right?
Right.
And what does he don't want? Well, he don't want them on his back, but he still wants them there, because, right? So, but what do the parents don't want? Well, they don't want them coming in at 3 a.m. They want them coming in at 10, so they know it's okay. And Sue, used to tell the story when she was raising her kids, Sam and Alex, that she didn't really care what they did. She didn't really care anything else as long as they came home at a reasonable time and in good shape.
Yeah.
Those were her criteria, which I thought was, that's really brilliant because it's like, okay, yeah, I know you're going to get into stuff. Of course you are. And of course she also tells the story how she found out one day that, Alex had gone to this whole stack of concerts because he had the ticket stubs from them. And she was like, I had no idea. Well, good. It all worked out. He'd always come back, in good shape and, on time and all that kind of stuff. But a lot of change agents or those who are getting themselves in that business think that the job is to overcome the client's resistance to what their problem is, right? And forget it. That's not going to go anywhere because you're not meeting the client. You're not meeting them in what they don't want, their problem, their sense of the problem. And you're also not meeting their sense of what they want to change. Because frequently they've given up. And the possibility of things changing just makes no sense whatsoever. Right? So you meet the client, right? Meaning you find out, do you really actually have a client in front of you? Do you really have someone in that moment in some way that fulfills those two criteria, whatever they are? And so, I never had much use for the concept of resistance. I just saw it as the client's wisdom.
Yeah.
They know what has worked to get them still to be alive and surviving. So, that's a resource. That's not a limitation.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So the next is joining. What's joining? Joining is building rapport. It's getting the client's story as the client experiences it. So how do you know that you've joined well enough? Because the client feels understood by you as they understand themselves to be.
Exactly.
So you give them back their story that they've been telling you, and you can see that the face softens, or else it brightens up, or whatever their change is, and they go, yeah, it is. That's the way it is. That's the way it is for me. That's my life.
Yeah. You get me.
And if you get me, that's right. You get me. Doesn't mean you agree. It's just it means you understand, right? Well, so you get the story, which is always the client's story, and in a very important sense, the client's story is always a lie. Why is it a lie? Because it's incomplete. It's not that it's a lie because it's wrong. It's just incomplete. So I'm thinking of another family that came in with an angry adolescent, and they all sat down, and the parents, here was this kid that was there, obviously really like sullen and pissed off and like, oh, whatever, right? And so I looked at her and said, well, okay, I'm here to be helpful. How do you think I can be helpful? What'll make this be useful for you? Help me out here, get us started. And the parents both said, well, he never listens to us. Well, that's a fascinating thing to say. So I turned to him and I said, so I guess it was your idea to come here today?
Yeah.
Right? And he went, are you kidding me? Hell no. And I said, oh, well, how'd they get you to listen to him? And he said, well, they said they'd ground me till I was 30 if I didn't come. And so I turned back to him and I said, well, you do know how to get him to listen to you, so what's the problem? Well, it shouldn't ought to have to be that way. Okay. How's that working for you? It's like, You want to keep doing what doesn't work, or do you want to try to do something else? That's the question. So, what's the problem? Well, the problem, what they don't want, is that he never listens to him. Well, him sitting there is a counterfactual for that, right? Unless it was his idea. Okay, it was his idea. Well, then how did he get you to listen to him?
Yeah.
How did that happen? Right? And how come these parts aren't fitting together? Because what's the totality? The totality is that there's that give and play and dance and back and forth and understanding, being understood, revealing, blah blah blah, right? All of it. So what's the next stage after the joining, where you're in rapport and they feel understood by you as they understand themselves to be? It's getting the rest of the story.
Oh boy, I'm sorry. Paul Harvey came into mind.
Yes, exactly.
And
Page
now you
2.
know
Yeah,
the
right.
rest of
The story.
Sorry.
Yeah, exactly. No, you're right. But see, that's how come those kind of catchphrases can really stick for us, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like, yeah, it is. It's about getting the rest of the story.
Right.
Right? It's not just, okay, here's the story. No, it's not. That's
So much more.
somebody's, yeah, there always is. There can't not be, right?
We might have to end the breadcrumbs episode. You and I,
Right.
we talk about certain things and people, huh? Paul Harvey?
What is that? Oh, that's right. I know. Yeah. We
Who?
sound like a broken record. What?
But at the same time, man, I'm 17 inside my head here.
I know, right. Oh, you had another birthday, did you? I'm 16. Okay, so you get the rest of the story, and how do you get the rest of the story? Well, the usual phrase is it's the search for exceptions or counterfactuals.
Okay.
Right? Okay, so he didn't from birth not listen to you. So when did you start noticing this? When was the change happening? Right? Because it also wasn't like one morning suddenly, he was an alien, like the movie we were talking about,
Okay.
right? It's that, there was a change and you noticed it, and now it seems like that changing process is just stuck.
Yeah.
Like that's not there anymore. And because life is it's all change. Things never stay the same, and yet they are close enough sometimes. The sand dune, every time we go there, pretty much, is still kind of a sand dune, right? Unless you get a hurricane that hits the beach, and then the whole beach may be gone, right? So it's how do you recognize, how do you get the rest of the story? Because when you have the rest of the story, or enough of the rest of the story, now you're in the transformational realm or possibility. And what's the core fundamental transformation? Telling the whole story. Right? So yeah,
Not
you're
the
damned
lie.
if you do. That's right. And then it becomes, now what do you want to do? Right? So, okay. It's frustrating when he doesn't listen to you. There are times that he does. Right? And here they are. Here are examples. So now, what do you want to do? Right? Because you know at least one way to get him to listen to you. Because if you didn't know that, you wouldn't even have the concept that he's not doing it. You'd be the fish in the ocean, and the ocean would be his doing and not doing of things. It would just be what is. There wouldn't be a possibility of seeing it distinctly or differently. And if you actually hit the moment and you hit enough of the whole story and express it in the midst of that rapport, that connection, as we're all just human here.
Yeah.
And here you are, right? then you get an Emily Latella moment.
That's interesting.
Exactly. And the head tilt and the breath change is them literally seeing it from a different perspective.
Wow. Yeah.
Right? It's the stuff is so simple if you get out of your head and you simply watch and listen and follow everything. The body dynamics will shift, the physiological cues will shift, there'll be a softening. There can be tears above and smile below.
Yeah.
That's a really typical one.
Yeah.
And there's the world appears again in all its freshness and liveliness and possibilities and awfulness too. You actually see then what happened in the traumatizing event from the past, for instance. And you see all of the people or all of the agents or all of the aspects as just reality. Because there's no horribly, terribly awful villain and no horribly, terribly damaged victim. Everyone's a victim. Everyone is a perpetrator. Everyone, in some ways.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. I'm not denying the justice seeking, the righteous question of all. That's presumed in all of it. It's more recognizing that they're human beings involved in this, doing the best that they can with the resources they think they have and the constraints of where they are. And that can be very painful to recognize that. Even if you weren't present, even if you're the transformational agent, it can be incredibly painful, but incredibly human and loving. And that's the point. That's the wholeness. That's what's really there if you allow it. And when that happens and the transformation occurs, and you get Emily and her little,
Never mind.
Never mind. Yeah, exactly. What's never mind mean? What never mind means is the problem has now gone. It's no longer a problem. It's just an aspect of reality, right? So what's the next? What's the fifth phase? You resolve. You solve the original problem in terms of the change that has just happened. So you're dealing with the couple who says, gosh, you're like headed for divorce and this is terrible and we fight all the time and neither of us can stand it and I don't know what we're going to do. I don't know, And it's like, okay, yeah, I hear that. That really sucks. I get it, but I'm really intrigued about something here, and I hope you bear with me in this. Like, how did you guys initially become a couple? How did you get really interested in hanging out together? What'd you do? How did that happen? Because you never meet somebody and say, oh, you're kind of interesting, but holy cow, in, I don't know, 5 or 10 years, we're going to hate each other. We're going to get divorced. We're going to throw things. Yeah, what the hell? Let's do this. Right? It doesn't go that way, right? So how did you get interested? What did you do, to start? What happened? What were the events going on? And, usually there's already a mini Littell moment there where they go, oh, yeah, gosh, I haven't thought about this in years. Well, there's an important clue, right? Oh, you remember that restaurant that we used to go? Oh, yeah, where was that place? This and that. And I'd say, oh, wow, that's really cool. You would go to this restaurant. You'd go there, quite a bit, apparently. Became like a thing, right? Well, when was the last time you went there? Oh, God, it's been, years. Oh, okay. Well, things change. I'm just kind of curious, like, what do you think would happen if you guys went there? Right? Don't try to get rid of the problem. Try to recreate the solution that's already there. Yeah. In the exceptions, right? We don't do anything together anymore. Nothing's fun. Well, no wonder.
Yeah.
You know, that's a tough dance to do. And it's tougher yet if those kind of bids, as the Gottman people would talk about it, those kind of bids to do something or be something together, or hey, remember we used to. How about we just with that? Let's just do that, you know. Or oh, that restaurant burned down years ago. Okay, what'd you like about it? You know, what was so cool about it? Well, it's nothing special. Okay, we want to find some place that's nothing special. And what makes it special? Well, you guys, not the restaurant. You know, and it's a whole different thing. That's the solution orientation. It's
Yeah.
not like positive thinking. Oh yes, there's always a good side. No, forget it. You can't go there.
You know,
That's you haven't joined. Yeah.
I want to share this with you because I think it dovetails in nicely. In the last couple of years, I've had a lot of loss of family, of friends, and the period of grief. And I'm at a place now. I listen I have a voicemail of my mother,
Oh yes,
when
you
she's calling
call.
me,
Yeah.
and I take that in, and they're not dead to me.
Of course.
When I look and I listen and I pay attention to my memories of that, they're always with me. I'm the
Yeah,
one who comes and goes, you
that's right.
know?
That's right.
And so maybe I'm odd, you've known me a while. But I I I'm not in grief
Right. Right.
over that. They come to me, excuse me, go back. I come back to them
To them, you come
with a
back.
smile on my face.
Of
And yeah,
course.
sometimes it's a little bittersweet because, I'd like to be going and visiting my mom and taking her to the opera with Neuroptimal the way I used to do.
Yeah,
That was a treat.
of course. Yeah.
So, but anyway, I'm sorry. I
No,
just
no,
felt like,
you're right on to what it is. And this dovetails into other things too. It's like, people will get stuck in their identities, and some people get stuck in the pain and the suffering side. They just do. And why do they do that? What's a story that we can tell ourselves about that? Okay. Well, we can tell ourselves that it was too traumatic. Anybody would be there. No, that's just not the case. Read Viktor Frankl.
yes.
Right? Read Albert Camus in The Plague. In the midst of all the chaos and suffering, I found an inextinguishable place of peace. Right?
Right.
It's
Beautiful.
how do you do that? Well, because you let go of all the parts ideas, you let go of the limited perspectives. You see the moment. I think about events in history and try to sort of put myself in that position. And I remember this was now probably 30 years ago or whatever, but I was seeing um, a whole thing about HMS Hood, some British warship that was obliterated with one shell that came from Bismarck. It did exactly the right place, exactly the whole everything. There was a million things that had to go the way it did, and literally the ship evaporated. It was just gone. And there were 1,700, I believe it was, on board, and only 3 survived. And I remember this incident where one of those survivors, who was actually on the bridge at the time, and I've forgotten, he was a seaman of some sort, of some ranking, had a very specific job there. But when he was just about to go step out to get off and start going down to get into the water, right? One of the senior officers was right there, and he started to, step back, is how he talks about it. and that officer just shoved him out the door, out the hatch, out the gangway. And the next thing he knew, he was in the water, and everything was gone, including that officer. Right? It's like, what would that be like if you were that survivor? Everybody remembers Jaws, and they remember it because of the jaws, coming at you. I think the most important scene in that whole movie was when one of the characters notices that the Robert Shaw character has this tattoo which has been scratched out, or try to get rid of it, kind of thing. And he goes, "Hey, what is that? What is that?" He says, "Oh, it's a tattoo that I had." He said, "Yeah, but what was it?" He says, "Oh, it was the Indianapolis." And that character was one of the few survivors, 300 out of 1,400, 1,700, however many it was, aboard that heavy cruiser. And 800 men went in the water, and only 300 survived because the rest were taken by the sharks. And, so you kind of understand the broader context of what these things mean, right? And, I think we're going to need a bigger boat. It's on a different...
I remember that.
Yeah, there are a few lines that are remembered, right? But most everybody forgets about the Indianapolis, which is actually a key part of the story of everything.
Yeah, well, it's a key point to understand Quint's motivations,
Yes,
and why he's just, totally devoted to getting this shark.
Exactly. But it also is telling the story of the Indianapolis in its being forgotten. Because one of the reasons that happened was a single heavy cruiser sent to deliver the atomic bomb to Tinian for Hiroshima. And they did it that way to minimize the chance that it would be detected. A group of ships together means something's happening. Single ship, easier to lose with the technology of the day. But of course, as they were coming back, as they were returning to Pearl Harbor, chance encounter sighted them and sank them, right? And nobody even knew, because the mission was so secret, that there was no contact until a lone PBY happened to be flying by. I think it was an Electra first, and said, "Wait a minute, there are all these guys down there. What the hell is that?" Took 3 days. And of course, what's the Navy going to do at that point? What's the War Department going to do? Say, "Well, yeah, the ship went down and we lost all these people because we tried to keep it hidden. But hey, the war's going to end, okay?" No, you don't tell that whole story at that point. It's, when can you tell it? But don't not tell it, right? Because and there's the horror and the beauty and the sacrifice. Sometimes it's hard for me to express what it's like to connect with people who have I don't want to say survived, because yes, they survived, but that's not all they did. And being a witness that shares the stories so they're not forgotten, so they're remembered. I'm thinking of my ex-in-laws who were both Holocaust survivors, and some of the very few. And to understand, to even begin to hear really what went on and what was done, what it was like. Most of us run and hide.
Well, yeah.
Right? But that's as essentially human as the joy of a birth in a family.
It's a beautiful story. Way of expressing.
Well, it's, and thank you, but it's difficult because if you can't allow yourself to experience that kind of feeling, like, because you have this, no, I have to be blank screen. Yeah, no, that just means you get that, like you're not even present. Okay?
I can't relate to a blank screen. I
Yeah,
cannot.
exactly. Unless you, that would be a Fritz cartoon. He used to have these series of cartoons that he did in and out of the garbage pail book, and some of them were really cute. But I can imagine, the blank screen, and who's the client? Well, it's a projector screen that's just sitting there with no image on it. Right?
Yeah. Funny.
Yeah. I've also, in case you can't tell, I've also been watching a lot of Robin Williams, you know, film, a lot of moments like from being on Johnny Carson or other things,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. What a
reliving
brilliant
those times. Oh
Yeah.
yeah. It's really brilliant guy. He really
And
was.
he could go from just odd, funny, slap happy stuff to,
Yeah.
I think of Good Will Hunting. I think
Oh
of
yeah.
oh gosh, what's the name of it? Here we go, senior moment, brain fart. Where his wife was descending into psychotic chaos.
What dreams may come.
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
love that movie. I don't
Yeah.
know that it was that popular, but it just resonated.
It well, it was. I think that was part of the challenge at times. Is that I, he was so good. He was in situations of movies that had the potential for that sort of magic to come through,
Easy.
and that's one of them. It's a very difficult movie for many people to watch because it's so real
Yeah,
in so many ways.
very much so.
And yeah,
And that's
it
what
took
grabbed me.
Yeah, well, no, exactly, and that's what's true about Good Will Hunting and Dead Poets Society. What gets clipped out of these are the really humorous moments. You know, like from Dead Poets Society when Robin Williams says, or John Wayne as Macbeth. Well, is this a dagger I see before me? Right? It's like that's a very clever thing, and he could pull it off, a pale comparison what I can do with it.
Right.
But that's not the movie. That's the whipped cream on top, or that's the pickle on the side or whatever.
It is.
And if you get that movie, and of course, for me, it's a very formative movie because I went back and taught for a year at the high school when I was still in college, at the high school where I had graduated from, and doing that and being there, and of course, as you can imagine, I was quite the rebel when I went there as a student.
Oh, foul? A
Yeah,
rebel?
really? Nah.
Oh.
And anyway, when I came back, it was like within the first week of my being there, teaching. The head of the counseling department and I met in the hall, and I mean, he's a wonderful guy. Don't get me wrong, but he looked at me and he said, "Ah, so you're teaching now?" And he said, "Well, now you're going to see what it's like since you're on the other side of the desk, right?" And I waited for just a moment. I said, Art, you might be right, but on the other hand, now you might see what it's like that I'm on the other side of the desk.
That's right. That's right.
Like,
that's right.
You really up for this? I am. And it's true. It's true. It was a fascinating year for me to be there, and all kinds of stuff came out of that for me. It was very much that I say to people, it's very much like Dead Poets Society. The only thing was no death. There was no
Yeah.
Other than that, it's very similar. And so I definitely identified with that one of Robin Williams, but
Yeah.
all of them. I mean,
Yes, I do too.
he really is just, he was a brilliant, amazing person because he embraced it all.
Yeah.
And hid a lot of it.
Yeah. Exactly so. Yeah. Well, we're coming up on an hour, and I have loved. I could go on and on. But I have my gig that pays the bills that I need to get to. So.
Of course, yes.
But I mean, this has been fantastic, and I really appreciate you again coming on, imparting your living.
Whatever it is.
Yeah, I want to continue to come and take a little bit of your time, in the future.
For sure.
And whatnot. Yeah, so we're going to be wrapping this up. Just a reminder, Val, that we stay in. Once I stop, we'll stay in here until we get the uploads of our audio files. Yeah, and many blessings to you, my good sir. You go on and take what was that phrase? Go take on the day or something like that, and
right.
And I'll be right behind you, following a little more breadcrumbs and whatnot. What did Val say? What did he mean?
That's right. Yeah.
Cook. Yeah. Oh, my Emily Latella moments.
That's right. Yes.
All right. Well. Thank you again. Blessings to all the listeners out there, and we'll be back again sometime next week.
Yeah. All right.
Take care.
Take care. Bye.